friends. It's Lori again. It's the Intuitknit podcast. Thanks for coming back, and thanks for joining me if it's your first time. I appreciate it. It's a nice spring day today in April, just after the Easter holiday. So yeah, it's a very uplifting day today, so I hope you feel the same. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my knitting, spinning, and some of the other projects I've been working on. So get your cuppa and sit down and have a tea break or coffee break. Yeah, so I've got a few things to tell you right off the bat, and that is that our knit along is up on Rav, and so if you'd like to enter this new cal that we've got going, I call it a cal, but it's actually probably a make along because I'm not really limiting it to any knitting. It could be anything at all, but the subject, the topic that we're going to be knitting along or nicking along with is going to be the topic of bees. So anything related to bees is fair game. And so if you'd like to make a stitch pattern that is like a bee, honeybee, or perhaps a honeycomb stitch, that would be great. I'll show you my project that I'm working on, and of course I can't enter my own contest or make along, but I just thought it might give you some inspiration. And so I've had a few people messaging me saying they're working on it. Some lovely honey colors, so that'll be great. Our prizes are generously donated by some of the people that have come forward for me, and that's been great. So there's some lovely yarn by the Cabin Fever people. Deb Gemmel locally has donated 3 skeins of her beautiful cotton DK yarn to make possibly one of her patterns, which she's also donating. It's a baby sweater, and if you look on Ravelry, you're going to see the pattern. And so that's lovely. And as well, I have another skein of yarn that someone has donated, and I'll give away to another contestant if you like. So please enter. It's on the Ravelry page under the Intuitknit podcast. So yeah. So I just thought I would share with you some things that have happened recently. You may have seen the last 2 episodes that I've uploaded, and it was really concerning the event that was local to me in Port Hope, Ontario, and it was called The Gathering. So it was really a fun day. I drove all the way out there. It probably was maybe a 2-hour drive from where I live. And it's down by Lake Ontario, Port Hope. It's a very historic place to live, and so it's great to wander around that town. But every year they have an annual meet-up, and it's called The Gathering. And what it is for fibre lovers who would like to get together and spin. So a giant gymnasium is devoted to that whole goal. And so this time we had probably, gosh, if I were to judge, I'd probably say almost 75 spinners all in one room. And then there was another adjoining room too, which there were people spinning in too, which was devoted to one of the other vendors. And I'll share with you some of those items that I got. But yeah, that was lots of fun. And so my son came with me, and if you're wondering who the heck that was in the last podcast, that was my eldest son, Corey. And so he was happy to be there. His birthday was the next day, so we were in Port Hope and then drove down to Toronto to celebrate his birthday, so that was good. Anyway, it's lovely to have a spring birthday, isn't it? Mine's in November, so it's kind of dreary in November, but I always think November or April would be a lovely time to have a birthday. So I'm going to show you some of the spinning that I've been doing, and following along with the whole spinning gathering event that I went to. You may have seen some of these on Instagram because I do tend to share them when I do them. And I think probably some of you have seen this beautiful denim spin that I did. It's a 2-ply. I don't really do 3-ply very much, but I'll show you one of the skeins that I did that is a 3-ply. So this is a 2-ply. This is actually a mixture of merino, and it's got some alpaca in it as well, and maybe a little bit of tencel. I'm not a very good recorder of these things. I know many spinners are very meticulous about recording what some of the fibers are, but I tend to keep them all together. If it's not a sheep breed that I'm devoted to, like spinning it up from the fleece, then I'm kind of just winging it. But anyway, so it's just for me, and that's what I like to do. So what I was doing with this skein is I was using up a lot of different yarns that I had just on various spools, so that it's very variegated. And I don't know, there's not a lot in this little skein, but I thought maybe I could make it part of a hat. Yeah, it's 2-ply. It's very soft. It's not very rustic. It's quite soft. So yeah, I think that'll be very lovely. Maybe a hat for the fall would be really pretty with that one. And this one was a couple of spools that I had spun up separately. One was like a very intense red carmine color, and then the other one was like a burgundy bluish color. And so this is what I got as a result. So it's barber poled, of course, but I think because both of those colors have a similar value in that they're dark. Say you were to take a black and white photo of this skein, it would probably seem pretty similar in its value. So yeah, it's kind of blends in, and when you see it from back here, you can see what I mean. I've really been fascinated lately with this almost like a blood red color, paired up with this actual turquoise color. And I've seen a few sweaters lately that have those two colors in them, the turquoise and this. It reminds me a bit of Navajo, what I think of as Navajo colors. That sort of turquoise color, maybe sort of like the gemstone turquoise color, and then this blood red color. So I may try to find a yarn, or even dye a yarn, which is that turquoise color, and then match it up with this, make it the same weight of yarn. I was watching the Fibromorphics podcast. If you haven't seen them, do look at their color variations. They tend to dye their yarns themselves with food coloring. It's just amazing, the variation of colors that they get. So beautiful, the ones they match together. I'm so inspired by that podcast. It's a podcast coming from New Zealand, and they're two young women that are a delight to watch. So if you haven't seen the Fibromorphics podcast, have a look and take particular note of their colors. Each has their own sense of color, but they're beautiful, just beautiful colors they use. And then this one was my attempt at doing chain plying, or Navajo plying, as some people do call it. I prefer to call it chain plying because I think it describes it a little bit more accurately. And this was actually a bat that I had purchased in Rhinebeck maybe a couple of years ago. And I divided the bat so that it would be a color transition from pink, like an intense pink, to an orange, and then a yellow, and then a green, and then a blue, turquoise blue, and then a teal blue. As you can see, there's not much red in here. It's mostly orange, yellow, green, and blue. And that's because I got peed off with it. I just could not make my hands work properly that day. I don't know. Maybe there's days that everybody has that are like that, but I was quite annoyed with myself. So what did I do? I just sort of quit and decided, okay, that's enough of this, and so that's the only colors that I have. So as a result, I have one spool that's kind of like a pink color, which was the Outcast yarn that didn't get spun up into a chain ply. So yeah, that's my spinning for, and I think what I was working on in the gathering wasn't any of those yarns. It was part of my fleece that I am still doggedly working on, my Finn fleece. You might have seen that in previous podcasts if you've been watching me faithfully. Yeah, so that's my spinning. Now at the gathering, I did make some purchases, as you can well imagine, because, you know, you're at that location and people are running around and have yarn on their minds and yarn in their baskets. So I did make a few purchases, but nothing crazy. I don't really want to invest in a lot of things because I already have too much in my stash, but I did buy a few things. So one of them was this lovely braid, and I'm really obsessed with orange lately. Do you know the color combination I'm really loving is orange with pink? And you know, it's funny, as a kid, and I was probably growing up in the 60s, my mother always told us, no, you can't wear pink with orange. I don't know why, but it seemed to be an edict that we took very seriously. And now when I see pink and orange together, I'm so drawn to it and so attracted to it. I don't know whether it's just the rebel in me saying, no, actually there's no right way to use color. But I do clearly remember my mother saying, no, you can't wear those two together. So maybe some of you have received that kind of input when you were trying to match your clothes together. But yeah, I bought this beautiful, I think it's merino roving that I'm going to be using, but I'm sure that will look beautiful all spun up. It's partly this beautiful honey color here, and then bright intense orange, so that will be beautiful. And it was almost like I was sitting across the room and I couldn't take my eyes off that orange until finally it had to be in my basket. So I don't know, yeah, some of you might understand it. And then the other one that I was drawn to was this one, which has a little bit of blue in it, same fiber. I think actually this one has a bit of cormo in it, and cormo and merino, so that should be a pleasant spin, I think. The only problem with some of the skeins that I've spun up that have merino in them is that sometimes the yarn, if you knit it up, will tend to pill a little bit. So I'm not sure how I can avoid that, unless I maybe plied it with something that doesn't tend to pill to sort of wrap some of the fibers more tightly. I don't know if any of you have come up with a solution to that, but I just noticed that some of my shawls that I've made of hand spun that have been merino have tended to do a little bit of that pilling, so not sure what I need to do with that. And then I actually saw this one, and I'm working my way toward making an entire sweater of this carmine red color. Now some of you might think, oh my gosh, what is she thinking? But this looks a lot brighter than it actually is on the screen, but this is really intense, but actually in real life it's not that intense. So I have a lot of DK weight store-bought yarn that is of this magenta color. So I thought maybe what I could do is make a sweater, maybe with the sleeves different from the body part. Maybe knit up the sleeves first and then do the body of hand spun. I don't know, but I just really like this beautiful color, and I think it might suit me. It's hard to say. Not sure what suits me lately. It used to be what they would call a winter. Do you remember when people would have their colors done and they would tell you exactly what colors suit you? Well, I used to be a winter, but then of course my hair was a lot darker at that point, so I don't know if our colors change according to how much gray we're getting, but yeah, not sure. So anyway, that one. And then the last film that I did was of Wellington fibres, because they were actually in a separate room away from the main room for the gathering. And if you do live in Ontario, you may be quite familiar with Wellington fibres, because they do tend to be at all the festivals that you attend for fibre lovers. I know they're going to be at the Knitters Frolic in Toronto, and They are frequently at many of the gatherings that I go to, but they are known for their mohair. They have mohair goats. I've been to their location before, and beautiful colors. I think mohair tends to dye into very intense, beautiful colors. Something about the fiber maybe takes it up more dramatically. So it's hard to choose when you're in the midst of seeing all the vibrance of their colors. It's really hard to choose. But in any case, I chose this beautiful turquoise color, and this is a lace weight, so there's enough yardage in here to make a shawl. Let's see, there's 650 yards in this actual skein, so it's just a turquoise colorway, it's called, and so it's 80% mohair, 20% wool, 650 yards, 2-ply, and it's a lace weight. So she said that I would be able to make an entire shawl out of 650 yards, and I think that I will. That'll be quite beautiful. So it's very soft. You know, you think of mohair as maybe having a little bit of tooth to it, but this is actually quite soft. I'm sure it will be even drapey when I make the shawl out of it. So yeah, that will be beautiful to try somewhere up ahead. And if you just excuse me for a minute, I'm going to close the window because, yeah, I'm just going to close the window. I wasn't sure if you could hear some of the sounds going on out there. So, okay, so what else am I working on? I mentioned before that I'm working on something for the Cal coming up, or make along, whichever you want to say. And, excuse my reaching, what I'm doing is I'm taking some design elements that are reminiscent of bees, to me anyway, and I'm trying to incorporate them into a shawl that I'm just making for myself. Don't want to call it I'm designing, but I guess I am. So what I'm doing is I'm using 2 colors, and these are just colors from my stash. And this one is a Socks That Rock colorway that I got quite a few, actually my daughter gave me this skein quite a few years ago. Doesn't that look a little bit like what you think of as insect eyes? You know how you get that opalescent sort of variation of color when you see insects up close? Yeah, that's kind of what it reminds me of. And then this one is actually more of a ginger color, and this one's an Ancient Arts yarn. And I did have the ball band here, but I've probably, oh, here it is. I've probably shown that to you before. It's Orange Tabby, and this is one of the colorways that she makes using the theme for different kinds of cats. So Orange Tabby is the name of that one. So what I'm doing is I'm going to make a shawl using those 2 skeins of yarn, and I'm varying the colors back and forth. Sorry about all the loose ends here, for anyone who's annoyed by that. And so I'm doing basically 2 rows of each. But I just love the way that that dark one is varying itself as I do the different rows, so that it's has very kind of an interesting variation of color at the farther back you get as well, because the Orange Tabby is variegated as well. So it kind of shimmers a little bit, I find, in its coloring. So that's going to be the main part of the shawl. It's a crescent shape that I'm doing, and I'm increasing in the middle, as you can see. And then I found a motif in a library book, and I hope that this isn't violating anybody's copyright, but I'm using one of the motifs that I found in a library book for the pattern, the bee's knees. And this actually was a child's sweater, but they had used a color work design to do part of this child's sweater. And I thought, well, that would be really good for the border of my shawl if I can manage to organize where they'll be placed along the edge. It may turn out to be quite unwearable. It may turn out to be a disaster. I don't know. But I just thought it would be kind of interesting to try. So these are the bees that I'm trying to duplicate in the border of my shawl. That's the bigger one. And then this one is actually the small bee that I could incorporate. So depending on how much room I need for the border of the shawl, I thought that might be kind of interesting to put bees along the lower edge. Now that shawl will only have one side that's wearable because I don't know how to do double knitting. Sorry, Nathan, of the Songmatician podcast. He would be appalled that I wouldn't attempt it, but I just don't think I'm going to do that right now. I'm just going to work away and do color work. And so we'll be one-sided this shawl. And so, yeah, I thought that that might be kind of interesting to do. I think by the time I get this finished, it might even be closer to fall, even though the make-along is going to be finished the end of May. So I'm not sure how far I'll get, but I might surprise myself and finish it. I'm pretty far along right now. And I'm using my Knit Picks interchangeable needles. And they're very smooth. I think they're getting kind of smooth the more I use them. And I like the joins. They're not too jarring when I change yarns, so that's working out well for me. What else am I doing? Well, I started a pair of socks because I always like to have something on the needles that I can take with me on trips. And so, like the rest of you probably, I'm doing some Regia, Arnie, and Carlos in the colorway. Oh, what is this colorway? Well, it's just a number, I think, 03656. Is that right? Yeah, I think so. Anyway, so I did a white cuff, and then I'm doing just probably a short leg. I think I might try to make these for my daughter's boyfriend, and he was saying that he's a size 11 foot, so I may have to make a short cuff in order that I get enough yarn out of that to make a size 11 foot for a man. So I hope that he likes it. It's really, I think, a beautiful colorway. I love the mixture of terracotta with blue. There's something about that color that really appeals to me. So, and I'm using my carbons, 2.5 carbon DPNs for that. Yeah, so that's good. And I think what I'm using for the cuff is Briggs & Little nylon wool sock yarn. This is actually a single ply, but it's working out okay. I just hope that care is used to wash them because I'm not sure that I don't think it's superwash. And so I'll have to just tell my daughter that there has to be some care when those socks are washed. No putting them in the dryer for sure. Or maybe even the washer might be a disaster too. And for those, I'm keeping those in my beautiful bag by Emily of the Fibre Town podcast. Look at the beautiful weaving that she's done for this bag. I so envy and admire her for all the lovely weaving that she does. And it would be a great way to use up some ends that you have when you are a spinner. Inevitably you have random skeins of yarn, orphan skeins of yarn that are hiding in bags and baskets. And so you do need a place for them sometimes, and I think weaving would be an excellent place to use them. I wanted to share with you, because I've never really told you before, but I actually used to be a rug hooker as well. I say used to be. I have some ongoing works in progress that I haven't been getting back to, and they've been languishing. But I wanted to show you one because it reminds me a little bit of my time in Edinburgh. in the sense that part of the design of this rug, which is of my own making, is actually thistle. It's a thistle design. And so I'll try to hold it up. It's not finished, but I'll hold it up for you the best that I can here. So it's